Have you ever been judged for something you didn't do just because of how you look? He survived 3 brutal tours in Iraq as a Marine sniper. But back home, he was handcuffed in a grocery store for simply matching a description. What happened next in court? It left everyone speechless. Marcus Thompson just wanted to grab some bread and milk. It was a Tuesday around 5:30 p.m. at a Walmart in Phoenix, Arizona. He had his earbuds in, not playing music, just blocking out the noise while he checked his shopping list on his phone. His shoulder still ached from sleeping on the VA hospital bed the night before. He'd only been back in the States for 6 days. He turned down aisle 8. That's when he saw the shadows closing in from both ends. 4 officers. No warning. Hands where I can see them. One yelled, gun drawn. Marcus looked up, half confused, half in disbelief. A voice in his head said exactly what they trained him. Don't make sudden moves. So he did exactly that. Slowly placed his phone on the shelf. Raised both hands. Sir, I think you have the wrong. Turn around. Now. He turned. The handcuffs were on in under 10 seconds. Colt. Tight. Too tight. Customers stood frozen. One woman clutched her purse. A teenage boy near the frozen foods held up his phone, recording. Another shopper whispered, "What did he do?" The answer came from a young cop, still catching his breath. Matches the description. Armed robbery in Scottsdale last night. Marcus heard it, but it didn't make sense. "I live here," he said, still facing the shelves. "I've been back from Iraq for 6 days. Check my wallet. My military ID is inside." But no one checked. One officer patted his pockets, found his ID, gave it a quick glance, and tossed it into a plastic bag. The walk to the patrol car felt like a mile. He tried not to look at anyone, but he saw their faces. Some confused, some suspicious, a few angry but staying quiet. As they pushed his head down into the cruiser, Marcus caught a glimpse of himself in the side mirror. His jaw was clenched. The exhaustion was gone. All he felt was pure humiliation. At the Phoenix Police Department, he was fingerprinted, searched, and photographed. His phone was left in the shopping cart. His wallet was in an evidence bag. His arms, still stiff from his last sniper mission, were now turning red around the wrists. "Can I call someone?" he asked a sergeant behind bulletproof glass. "You'll get one call once we confirm everything," she replied without looking up. He was taken to a small holding cell. No bench, no clock, just concrete blocks and a sour smell in the air. For the first time in years, Marcus felt completely powerless. He sat on the cold floor, leaned back, and closed his eyes. Memories of Baghdad came flooding back. The nights when he couldn't tell if the sound in the distance was gunfire or a car backfiring. The children who watched from rooftops, not knowing if they were signaling the enemy. The sniper position where he spent 18 hours covered in sweat and dust, waiting for the one shot that would save his unit. There was no honor here, no mission, just a man alone because someone thought he looked dangerous. He didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. Around 3 a.m., a guard walked by and said something through the bars, but Marcus didn't hear it. He kept thinking about his grandmother, Ruby. She didn't even know he was home yet. He was going to surprise her this weekend. She used to say, "Always stand tall, baby. The truth walks while lies run." He had stood tall, and still, here he was. By sunrise, the bruises on his wrists were dark purple. Marcus stood when light cut through the small window. His knees cracked. His neck was stiff. The concrete had drained all warmth from his bones. A different officer came by with a paper plate. Dry scrambled eggs. A piece of toast that looked like it had been stepped on. No fork. No knife. "Water?" Marcus asked. The man didn't answer. Just slid the tray inside and walked away. Marcus leaned against the wall and tried to eat. One bite was enough. His stomach turned. He didn't know what time it was. There was no clock, no phone, no window to the outside world. The only sounds were distant doors slamming and the occasional cough from another cell. Around mid-morning, they called him out. The same officer who had ignored his military ID was waiting. His voice was flat now, almost bored. "Let's go, Thompson." Marcus followed, still handcuffed. They took him to a small interview room. 2 chairs, 1 table bolted to the floor. A camera in the corner blinking red. A different detective walked in. Older guy. Gray hair and tired eyes. He looked like someone who had seen too much. He sat down across from Marcus, opened a folder, and studied him. "You're a Marine?" "I am. Still active. Just finished my 3rd tour." The man nodded slowly. "Where?" "Baghdad. Fallujah before that. Ramadi before that." "That's real," the detective muttered. "You've got a lot of miles on you." He slid a photo across the table. The suspect was blurry, caught mid-stride outside a convenience store. He wore a hoodie, dark jeans, and had facial hair. "That's supposed to be me?" Marcus asked. "Honestly," the detective said, "I don't think so. But the officer who arrested you said you were close enough to hold." "I told them who I was. Showed my ID." "Yeah, that's in the report." Silence. "I've already recommended your release. It'll take a few more hours, but you'll be out by this afternoon." Marcus stared at him. "That's it." The detective looked uncomfortable. "Look, man, I don't know what to tell you. Wrong place, wrong time. I read your file. You saved lives over there. You got medals, commendations. Hell, a letter from a general. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't erase what those people saw yesterday." The detective sighed. "You're right. It doesn't." When they brought him back to the cell, Marcus leaned against the wall, this time standing. If he sat down, he felt like he was giving up. A few hours later, a sergeant came with a clipboard. "You're being released. No charges. Clean record." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Why was I arrested in the first place?" "No arrest on record," she said. "Just a detainment. You can get your property at the front desk." She handed him a plastic bag with his wallet, a receipt for his belt and watch, and a slip for his phone, which they said was still at the store. "Someone going to apologize?" he asked. She didn't answer. Outside, a young man was waiting, early 20s, holding Marcus's phone, looking nervous. "You dropped this," the kid said. "I saw the video online. I figured they wouldn't let you keep it. I waited here. Thought, I don't know, thought maybe you'd need it." Marcus took the phone. "No case. No scratches." "Thanks," he said. "What's your name?" "Jake," the kid said, trying not to fidget. "You film it." "No, but I saw the one that girl posted. Said you were military. My dad served too." Marcus gave him a nod. This time it meant something. By the time Marcus made it back to his apartment, the video had already hit 100,000 views. It was filmed by a teenager named Ashley Rodriguez. She'd been in the store buying snacks when the cops rushed in. She didn't know who Marcus was. She just knew something didn't feel right. So she pulled out her phone, hit record, and posted it to TikTok with a simple caption. "This man was arrested at Walmart for matching a description. After showing his military ID. What are we doing?" The comments flooded in. He was calm the whole time. They didn't even check his ID properly. "That's a Marine. WTF. Somebody needs to fix this." It wasn't just outrage. It was recognition. People had seen too many versions of this story before. But this time, it wasn't someone shouting or running. It was someone who looked like he'd been carrying the weight of too much already. Someone tired. And that changed everything. One of the people who saw the video was Staff Sergeant Carlos Martinez, stationed at Camp Lejeune. He was scrolling during lunch when he stopped cold. He recognized Marcus immediately. "He trained me, man," he told his bunkmate. "That's Staff Sergeant Thompson. He saved our unit in Baghdad. I watched him take shrapnel and still complete the mission." Carlos didn't just share the video. He wrote a long post detailing Marcus's service, his leadership, his sacrifice. He tagged everyone he could think of, fellow Marines, veteran groups, journalists. "I don't know what y'all call this," he wrote, "but I call it disgraceful." The post caught fire within hours. It reached Colonel Sarah Chun at Camp Pendleton. She knew Marcus personally. He'd been selected for advanced training under her leadership. She remembered how he stayed late to help other soldiers, how he never lost his temper even in the worst conditions. She forwarded the video and Carlos's post to one more person, General Michael Roberts. General Roberts wasn't the kind of man who got involved in local arrests. He was head of operations for the Western Command, running logistics, authorizing deployments, reviewing security requests. But he remembered Marcus. He remembered him from a base outside Baghdad, back when Marcus was just a quiet corporal who volunteered for every dangerous mission. Roberts had signed Marcus's Bronze Star himself. He didn't watch the video once. He watched it 3 times. Then he stood up, walked to the window of his office in San Diego, and told his assistant, "Get me the name of the judge, find out where this hearing is, and cancel everything on Friday." Friday morning arrived with desert heat already building across the parking lot outside Maricopa County Courthouse. Marcus stepped out of a taxi wearing dark slacks, a white button-down shirt, and shoes he'd borrowed from his neighbor. He hadn't asked for help. The clothes just showed up at his door the day before with a note from a local veterans organization. "You are not alone. We're watching. See you Friday." The courtroom wasn't packed, but it wasn't empty either. A few people in the back clearly weren't related to the case. Older folks with notepads, a couple of college students, 2 guys in military haircuts who didn't speak, but stared down anyone who looked at Marcus wrong. A woman in a navy suit stood near the back wall, typing constantly on her phone. Press maybe. Maybe not. Marcus walked in unshackled this time, but he still felt chained. At the defendant's table, he sat beside a public defender who introduced herself in a whisper. "I'm Lisa Park. I got assigned this morning. Sorry for the delay. This whole thing is unusual." She laid out some paperwork, glanced at him, then leaned closer. "Look, I've handled wrongful arrests before. But yours? I read the file. It's thin, a blurry photo, and an officer who's already been reassigned. I won't let this slide." Marcus kept his eyes on the judge's bench. "I appreciate it." The courtroom doors opened again. Ruby Thompson stepped in, straight-backed and fierce. She wore a black dress and her church hat, the one Marcus hadn't seen since his boot camp graduation. Her eyes locked on him, but she didn't wave, just gave a short nod that said, "You all right, baby? I see you." Marcus had to look away for a moment. His throat tightened. Judge Patricia Williams finally entered. 60-something, silver-haired, known for running an efficient courtroom and having no patience for nonsense. She sat, adjusted her glasses, looked over the file and sighed. "State of Arizona versus Marcus Thompson," she said. "Mr. Thompson, I'm reading here that you were detained without a warrant based on a description that has since been proven inaccurate. Is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am," Marcus replied. The judge rubbed her temples. "And the ID presented at the time matched your identity and military status?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then why are we here?" Park stood. "Your Honor, we're filing a motion to dismiss all charges." "There are no charges," the judge interrupted. "Just a mess." Murmurs spread through the courtroom. Someone near the back muttered, "Good." Another whispered, "Damn right." Judge Williams was about to bang her gavel when the courtroom door opened again. Everything stopped. A tall man in full military dress uniform walked in, 4 stars on his shoulder, rows of ribbons across his chest. His presence cut through the room like lightning. It was General Michael Roberts. He didn't look left or right, just walked forward, step by step, then stopped directly in front of the judge. "Permission to address the court, Your Honor," he said, voice deep and measured. Williams blinked. You may." Roberts turned to Marcus. "Staff Sergeant Thompson," he began. "I've followed your service record since 2018. You are a marksman, a team leader, a survivor, and above all, a man who represents the highest standard of this country's military." Marcus stayed silent. His grandmother from the back let out a quiet mm. Roberts continued, facing the judge now. "Let me be clear. What happened to this Marine was not a procedural error. It was a failure. A failure to respect the men and women who risk their lives for people they've never met. A failure to distinguish between suspicion and service. And a failure that embarrassed not just this court, but my entire command." The judge looked stunned. Even the bailiff leaned forward. Roberts took a deep breath, stepped closer to Marcus, and spoke directly to him. "On behalf of every officer who ever gave you a command, I apologize. You did not deserve what happened to you, and I will personally see to it that your name is cleared at every level." Marcus's hands didn't move, but his shoulders finally relaxed. Then another door opened. A young woman with a press badge stepped in with a professional camera. Behind her came a man with recording equipment. The judge sighed. "Who authorized media?" "They were cleared, Your Honor," the bailiff answered. "Regional public access. They're doing a veterans' rights segment." Judge Williams looked like she wanted to object, but the camera was already rolling. General Roberts didn't flinch. He stood tall, then turned toward the gallery and continued speaking. Not to the judge now, but to everyone else in the room. "I've served in the military for 35 years, he said. "I've seen men like Staff Sergeant Thompson run through gunfire to save others. I've signed death notices. I've stood at funerals. What I haven't done enough of is speak out when those same men return home and are treated like they're disposable." He looked straight at the camera now. "If this can happen to him, it can happen to any of us. And if you think wearing a uniform is enough to protect you once you're back on American soil, then you haven't been paying attention." Every person in that courtroom was frozen in place. You could have heard a pin drop. Marcus didn't move. His jaw tensed slightly, but inside something stirred. It wasn't pride, not quite. It was validation. Roberts turned one last time to the judge. "I'm requesting a formal review of the department's handling of this case. The military will be filing a complaint. That paperwork is already en route. That's all I came to say." And just like that, he gave Marcus a final look, then stepped back. Williams exhaled slowly. "Well, Staff Sergeant Thompson, it appears your name is not only cleared but defended from the highest level." She tapped her gavel once. "Sharp. This hearing is concluded. Mr. Thompson, you're free to go. And on behalf of this court," she paused, looked at the press, then said what probably took effort to leave her mouth, "I apologize." The courtroom stood still for a few seconds. Then chairs creaked. Whispers restarted. Ruby Thompson held her purse tighter, but didn't speak as her grandson stood and turned toward her. Outside, reporters were already waiting. The girl with the camera tried to catch his attention. "Mr. Thompson, could you speak to what this means for returning veterans?" "Not right now," Marcus said, calm and measured. "I said not right now." Ruby joined him on the courthouse steps. She didn't hug him, just stood beside him close enough that he could feel her breathing. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "No," he answered, eyes still forward. "But I'm here." Down the street, parked by a fire hydrant, was a black SUV with tinted windows. The door opened, and General Roberts stepped out, this time without his hat. "Mind if I walk with you?" he asked. Marcus gave a small shrug. They started walking slowly down the street, the noise of the courthouse falling behind them. Roberts spoke first. "You handled yourself with more restraint than I ever could have. Didn't feel like I had much choice. Still, it mattered. People saw. People heard what you said. That carries weight." Marcus stopped walking. "I haven't said anything yet." Roberts raised an eyebrow. "You plan to?" Marcus looked up at the street light. "I might." 3 days passed before Marcus said a word publicly. He ignored every interview request, left every message unread. His phone lit up constantly. Notifications piling up, Instagram tags, email alerts, 3 voicemails from someone at CNN who sounded a little too eager. But then came the email from a school counselor named David Kim at Desert Vista High, 30 minutes outside Phoenix. Subject: "We need you to talk to them." Message: "Staff Sergeant Thompson, we have a JROTC group of about 40 students. Some of them saw the video. A few now question if military service is worth it." One kid said, "Why wear a uniform if they'll still treat you like a criminal? Would you speak to them?" Nothing formal. Just 30 minutes of truth. D. Kim. Marcus read it 3 times. He didn't respond right away, but something about that line, 30 minutes of truth, got to him. He showed up that Friday, wore his dress uniform, the same one he hadn't touched since returning, pressed the creases sharp, polished the boots until they reflected the ceiling light. Ruby saw him before he left. "You sure about this?" "No," he replied, "but it feels right." The Desert Vista Auditorium wasn't fancy. Just plastic chairs, faded curtains, and a row of flags near the stage. The students sat scattered, some with arms crossed, others scrolling on phones. When Marcus stepped up to the microphone, the room didn't go quiet right away. Not until he began speaking. "I'm not here to convince anybody of anything," he said. "Not here to defend this country or explain away the past 2 weeks." He paused. "I just want to tell you what I've seen and what I've learned." He told them about the deserts of Iraq, about the sandstorms, about watching a friend get airlifted out while he held pressure on a wound. He described nights when the only light came from muzzle flashes and days when laughter was the only defense against losing your mind. But then he pivoted. He told them about Phoenix. He told them how fast it happened, how little his service mattered in that moment, how people watched and said nothing, how the handcuffs weren't the worst part, the silence was, and how, in spite of it all, he still believed in standing for something. A hand went up near the front. A girl in a green ROTC jacket, probably 17. "What stopped you from, going off?" Marcus let the question hang. "I thought about it," he said honestly. "But here's the thing. I wasn't just wearing my name that day. I was wearing yours too. Every young person who wants to be seen. Every kid who's ever been ignored. Every veteran who came back and felt invisible." Another student raised a hand. This time a boy, hair buzzed short, face serious. "Would you still serve, knowing what happened?" Marcus gave it a second. 2. Then 3. "Yes," he said. "But I'd serve differently. I wouldn't stay quiet about things that felt wrong. I wouldn't swallow every insult just because I thought it made me tough. I'd speak up, like I'm doing now." Silence filled the space again. Then slowly applause. Not loud, not showy, but real. When it was over, several students came up to shake his hand. One hugged him without asking. Another slipped him a note that read, "Thank you for saying what my father never could." Outside in the parking lot, Mr. Kim waited. "I don't know what you did in there," he said, "but that room felt different when you finished." Marcus looked back toward the building. They just needed someone to be honest. By Monday morning, The story had landed on national news, but not in the way you'd expect. There were no flashy headlines screaming about injustice, no overproduced segments, just a quiet 5-minute piece on a veteran-focused program that showed General Roberts addressing the courtroom and Marcus standing silent, eyes steady, hands still. Then the clip of Marcus speaking at Desert Vista High went viral. That's what really changed everything. People didn't just watch it. They shared it, reposted it, debated it. Veterans of all backgrounds weighed in. Some angry, some moved, some ashamed. He's calm. That's scarier than yelling. One commenter wrote, "God help us if we need men like this and treat them like trash," said another. The Phoenix Police Department was forced to release a statement. It was filled with generic phrases. "We regret the incident. Under internal review. No ill intent." Nobody bought it. The arresting officers were identified within days. Officer Brian Mills, the one who first shouted, had been with the department under 3 years. His file showed prior complaints, including one that had been buried. Suddenly, Mills was on paid leave pending investigation. Marcus didn't comment. He didn't post. He didn't need to. Others did it for him. Carlos Martinez wrote a column that began, "If you were trained by Marcus Thompson, you knew 3 things. He shot straighter, cared deeper, and expected more from you than anyone else." It went viral again. The city council called a special session. Local activists started gathering outside the precinct, not in protest, but in vigil. A quiet one. No signs, just candles and photos of soldiers, many of whom had never received a proper welcome home. Marcus stayed grounded through it all. He went back to visiting his grandmother on weekends, fixed the broken fence in her backyard, walked her to church like he used to before deployment. Some people stared at him around town. A few asked for photos. One woman left cookies on his doorstep with a note that just said, "Semper Fi." But he didn't let the praise get to him. "I didn't do anything heroic," he told Ruby one afternoon as they folded laundry. "You stood still when the storm hit," she replied. "That's harder than most people know." He didn't argue. What got to him wasn't the media attention. It was the letters. Real letters. Handwritten. From veterans. From kids. From parents. From a woman in Oregon who said her brother had been arrested the same way in 1992. From a boy in Texas who now wanted to join the Marines, because if people like you serve, maybe I should too. He read every single one. One evening, sitting at his kitchen table surrounded by envelopes, Marcus picked up his phone. He finally opened the camera and recorded a short video. "People keep asking what I want," he said. "Truth is, I didn't ask for any of this. But now that it's here, I hope we don't waste it. I hope next time someone's accused of something, we slow down before we make judgments. I hope the uniform starts to mean something again. Not just in theory, but in how we treat people." He paused. And if you're watching this thinking, what do I do next? Maybe start by looking at the person next to you. Make sure they're seen. The video hit 5 million views in 48 hours. The high school talk should have been enough. But it stuck with him. That girl in the ROTC jacket asking why he didn't lose control. That face. That voice. It kept replaying in his head. So when Mrs. Garcia from the Maricopa County Youth Center reached out asking if he'd visit, he didn't pause before saying yes. "Don't need cameras," he told her. "Wasn't planning on bringing any," she replied. It was a Wednesday when he showed up. No uniform. Just jeans, boots, and a gray hoodie. Mrs. Garcia met him at the security desk. "They're not all bad kids," she said as they walked down the hall. "Most just never had anyone who really saw them." Marcus understood that more than he could say. The room was painted beige with plastic chairs and a few bored-looking teens already slumped against the walls. No one stood. A few sized him up like they were waiting to be preached at. Marcus stood in front of them. No microphone. No podium. Just him. "I'm not here to tell you how to live your life," he began. "I'm not your father, not your pastor. I've done things I don't expect you to understand. But I know what it feels like to be written off. I know what it feels like to have people look at you and see a threat before they see a person." A few heads lifted. "I got arrested in a grocery store," he continued. "Didn't run. Didn't yell. Still ended up in handcuffs." He let the silence hang. "I've been shot at in 3 countries. Lost friends. Saved some. Still didn't stop me from getting treated like a suspect in my own neighborhood." A kid with his arms folded finally spoke up. His voice was low but firm. "So what? You just forgive it?" "No," Marcus said plainly. "But I also don't drag it like a chain. I carry it like a warning." That got a few smirks. A raised eyebrow. He stepped closer. "You ever do something you can't explain? Not because you're evil, but because you didn't know better? Or no one taught you better? Or you just didn't care that day?" Several nodded. "I get that. I've been there. But here's the part nobody tells you: guilt can eat you. Regret can trap you worse than these walls ever will. But accountability? That's where freedom starts." After the talk, one boy came up as the others filed out. His sneakers were too big for him, laces loose. "You really shoot somebody?" he asked, eyes locked in challenge. "I did," Marcus replied calm, "because they were about to kill innocent people. I didn't want to, but I had to." The boy held that for a second, then nodded almost to himself. "I want to be better. Just don't know where to start." Marcus handed him a folded paper. "It's a list of programs that won't talk to you like you're beneath them. Not telling you what to choose. Just giving you options." The boy took it without a word and walked off. Mrs. Garcia stood beside Marcus as he packed up. "You shook something loose today." "I didn't shake anything," he answered. "They were already moving. I just showed up." The cameras eventually stopped calling. The press moved on to newer stories, louder controversies. But that didn't bother Marcus. He hadn't done any of this for headlines. A few weeks later, he sat alone on a bench at Papago Park in Phoenix, watching traffic pass along the edge of the desert. It was almost sunset. Light breeze. A few hikers. Kids on bikes. The kind of normal that felt rare now. He wasn't wearing anything that screamed military. No ribbons. No boots. Just an old t-shirt and a cap that had faded in the sun. As he sat there, a middle-aged woman came walking by with a girl trailing behind her. Maybe 10 years old. The kid was wearing a backpack with military patches on it. She looked at Marcus, then looked again. "Hey," she said. "Were you the guy in that video?" Marcus didn't move for a second. Then he smiled a little. "Yeah, that was me." The kid's face lit up like she'd seen a superhero. "My teacher showed us. You were really calm. I liked that." Marcus nodded once. "I appreciate it." The girl kept walking, turning back every few steps to look at him. The mother gave Marcus a look that said more than words could carry. A thank you, respect, maybe even a bit of shame. But honest. When they disappeared down the path, Marcus pulled out a small notebook. Not a phone. Not a tablet. Just a beat-up notepad he'd carried since his second tour. He flipped to a page near the middle and wrote something. "It's not about what happens to you. It's what you do with it after." Later that week, he visited the old community center where he used to run youth programs before his last deployment. It was mostly empty now, but the director said they'd been trying to get more people involved. Said they needed someone who could relate. Someone the kids would actually listen to. Marcus offered to volunteer. "No pay. Just time." "You sure?" the director asked, looking stunned. "I got a few hours a week to spare," he replied. "Might as well use them for something that matters." He started small. 2 kids, then 4, then a dozen. He didn't talk much about war. He talked about discipline, awareness, reading a room, learning how to breathe through pressure. The stuff nobody teaches in classrooms. The room filled week by week. People still whispered when he walked into stores. Still pointed sometimes, but not like before. It wasn't scandal anymore. It was reverence. And even though it made him uncomfortable, he never ran from it. Because he knew what it meant for others to see him. Not as a threat, not as a mistake, but as something they could be. A benchmark. A reminder that calm doesn't mean passive. That restraint is a kind of strength too. Back at home, Ruby kept a printout of the courtroom photo on the refrigerator. The one where General Roberts stood beside Marcus. She didn't show it off to guests. It wasn't about that. It was just there, like a quiet badge. One night, as they cleared the dinner table, she looked at him and asked, "You feel like yourself again?" He thought for a moment, then shook his head. "No," he said. "I feel better." Honestly, if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. We don't all wear uniforms, but we all serve someone, a neighbor, a student, a family member, the person behind you in line. The story of Marcus Thompson isn't about war or handcuffs. It's about what happens when we finally start treating each other like we matter. If this story moved you, share it. Don't let it stay silent. Someone needs to hear it.